It's that time of the month when I talk about how it's okay to be bad. And this month, we're talking about Scorpio and Taurus archetypes and why their allegedly bad traits are actually a necessary part of their evolutionary journey. And not only their evolutionary journey, but ours, as we are on the receiving end of those bad traits. And I use air quotes because I generally don't like to label and judge. Generally, there are some things I do, and then sometimes I remember I shouldn't, and other times I actually think I should, and I'm happy that I judged. But overall, I don't. And especially here, I want to speak of those bad traits, as in not just that I want to speak of them. Astrology explain them to us in a way that actually justifies them, evolutionarily speaking. So whether you're a Scorpio Taurus or you have people in your life that are that, this goes beyond the sun signs, as I often mention in my videos. This is wherever you have Scorpio. So every single one, if you're a Gemini, if you're a, I don't know, Libra or something, right? You will have Scorpio in your chart. So this will be relevant for you in that chart, in that section of your chart. And every house has certain meanings and connotations and things and themes that we are encountering through that house. And if you're not clear about what those are, I have a PDF, which is free PDF that you can download. It's on my About section on this YouTube channel. So grab yourself one if like I say, you would like to. I have a quite well, I've been told by many astrologers, colleagues, and as well as clients, interesting, unusual, different, and dare I say, even better or more refined than typically, standardly houses, how they're delineated. So maybe there's another reason to check that out. And before we dive into the actual specifics and the bad traits of Scorpio and Taurus and why they're there and what's their purpose and how we can actually benefit from them, I just want to talk a little bit about just a reminder, because this is a monthly thing, and I just want to remind you what I mean that it, the title is obviously a bit like soundbitey and stuff, and I like it. And I'm not condoning all kinds of behavior. In fact, I condone everything and anything that is consensual. That's my clause. That's my moral stand. But even further down that argument, if you like, that point, I just want to clarify why it's actually okay to be bad and why thinking like that is healthy. So this is about shadow work, the Jungian kind, Carl Jung, the psychologist that you're probably familiar with, I'm sure, if you're here. If not, Google Carl Jung and you'll find. He was talking about individuation. He was a psychiatrist, and he's a psychiatry is actually, or psychology is archetypal astrology, I think is called, psychology it was called officially. So he was using astrology as well with his clients. But long story short, that he identified this process of individuation as necessary for a life that we can call our own, but that it's meaningful to us uniquely, because we are unique in one way. In another, we are all the same and all that, but in one way that it also needs to be realized we are unique, and therefore to realize that unique purpose of ours and just the uniqueness that we feel like we are fully who we are, we need to individuate, which is really a process of self-integration where you integrate all parts of yourself. And for that, shadow work is like a catch-all phrase, or maybe it's just a phrase that I certainly use and I like it, which describes that process of individuation, like the method of how to integrate, how to individuate, how to self-integrate. And what that means, shadow work, is essentially working with your shadow. It's like facing your shadow, right? And so in that context, I mean, it's okay to be bad, because every single one of us, literally, I could bet my life on it, would sort of, I would have to rely on you being honest about it, or even conscious of it. Let's even not comment on the honesty, conscious of it, aware of it, but yeah. So I'm not going to bet, but hypothetically I would, and guarantee that every single one of us has badness in us. This doesn't mean that we are capable of doing it although potentially two, every single bad thing that the worst human has done and the best human has done, I think we possibly are all capable of doing, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's kind of like a theory properly. Obviously, I don't have research data. But that aside, like every badness that you feel about others or even about yourself secretly, but kind of try not to remember it or go there, is part of you. You are capable of it. It's in you to be felt. It's in you feeling. It has the feeling function that you are ignoring. So ignoring it, I'm ignoring, one is ignoring, I'm not speaking to anyone in particular. This is literally for every single one person on the planet, in my view. And so ignoring it creates disease, creates suppression, creates depression, amongst other many. It's kind of, it has to go somewhere. And if we keep suppressing it and putting it away and just hiding it, it turns nasty and it turns against us. And just as it came to me, I'll just mention it here if you're not familiar with the book by Robert Bly, who's like an American mythologist and mythopoet, who's passed away now. And his book, Little Book of Human Shadow, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It's just delightful. Like, it's a must read. And it talks about that. I love how he talks about that. It's in a bag. We stuff all that stuff in a bag up until we reach age 40 in order to conform and then be part of the society, whatever else, be accepted. And then after the age of 40, that's me, complete rehaul and just like, okay, what's in the bag? It just stinks and you can feel like, you're in the room and everything stinks around you. And it's like, okay, it's in the bag. The stink is in the bag, as much as I try to pretend it's not there. But then you start looking at it and it's ugly because it's been deprived of life, deprived of love, of acceptance. So that's why it's okay to be bad instead of stuffing things, because it comes back with vengeance, right? A Scorpio theme. So that's what I mean by that. It's okay to be bad. Now, let's go into the actual specifics of Scorpio and Taurus and their bad traits. So I'm gonna do this a little bit differently than the last two I've done, because I found as I've been rewatching that if I list them like three at a time and then when I speak to each separately, ultimately they boil down to the same thing. And I have found that in general with astrology, it's like, and that's the beauty of it. It's like there is no need eventually arrive at that point, like an astrology crone that I am, since I lived with it for like decades and practiced it and studied it, that you don't need to know technicalities anymore. It's like you just start to live in the world of archetypes. And whether it's an aspect, whether it's a house, whether it's a blah, blah, whatever planet, it's kind of, it just reduces itself to an essence. And you start speaking in those terms more meaningfully than in kind of those specifics. So I'm going to list them. So I'm not going to address every single one because, like I say, they ultimately are, the root of all of these badnesses are coming from these kind of bigger themes, and they're covered by them, if you like. So I'm going to list them, few, the kind of most typical ones. And then I'm going to talk about each archetype, Scorpio and Taurus, in general, to explain and to make us understand those badnesses. And then I'm going to connect them. That's the idea, and we'll see how the argument goes, since I'm an open throat, an open ajna, an open head, if you're into human design. And until it comes out, I'm often not sure what's going to come out. Okay, so Scorpio, whether you are one, and I have many clients, Scorpio clients or Scorpio rising, and they actually are aware of this, and they are aware that it's a shadow, basically. So they're not happy with it either, but they don't know. But the instinct is so strong. So I would say to them what I'm going to be sharing here with you, as well as to like if I had clients or friends or whatever, or I have experienced that in my youth, not now anymore. And I had always so many Scorpio, being that I'm Taurus, in my life, either rising Scorpio, sun Scorpio. Anyway, and that's so these complaints, like I say, are usually, typically, that they're secretive. And like I said, again, I'm talking like it's a sun sign Scorpio, just for the ease of verbal ease. But like remember the beginning, I said this would be relevant to you in the section of your chart where you have Scorpio, and I highly recommend whole sign houses. But your choice, obviously. So secretive, manipulative, vengeful, intense, mean. I mean, intense can be great, but it's like intrusive, penetrating, like get off me, like why you're piercing into me. In that sense, the intensity is bad. Intensity in another sense can be great. Mean, possessive, jealous, and so those are some of the bad traits of Scorpio, and again, bad under air quotes. And Taurus is slightly different, but actually similar. So stubborn, boring. That's one thing I think Scorpio has never been called, and I know Taurus has been, and I know when I have started to be called that, and it's been wonderful, and I'll talk about that. And so stubborn, boring, lazy, slow in the sense of movement, not in terms of intelligence or other mind or workings. What did I say? Lazy, hedonist, like pleasure-seeking, material, hoarding, possessive, and also manipulative, even though it's not as obvious in Taurus as it is in Scorpio. And I'll speak to that as well. In fact, might as well say it now because it's a really quick reference there. So just to maybe start with the commonalities, like why they're similar. And this is the beauty of working with pairs or other necessity. In order to understand any sign, we really need to understand its opposite. Because the evolutionary impulse, and evolutionary by that I mean the individuation, this in all of us, this impulse, and we all have the impulse for individuation, even before Carl Jung has given it a name and defined the process, if you like, or have a whole, studies and books on that. We all had that, and we were doing it. We just didn't know what it was called. And some of us more effectively if it's intentional, and some of us less so. And so these impulses are in all of us to go to the opposite, because even though we are, let's say, we have a stellium in Scorpio, therefore so much is focused on us being Scorpio in this lifetime, we will eventually or regularly in like cycles arrive at this point that we are just doing too much of Scorpio and we need some Taurus, whatever theme, energy, kind of process, type of way of being or whatever, right? Philosophy, Taurus traits, right? Because it becomes out of balance. And in that sense, we're all seeking balance. Balance as in, we're never achieving balance. Is not a static point. It can never be, because nothing is static, not because it cannot be. That thing is balanced. That's it. But life isn't too easy but it always seeks balance. And in that dynamic is it's that Sufi thing, when you swirl, and it's constant movement, but actually the center is stillness. So in that sense, balance is achieved regularly by nature, probably because nature hasn't got the mind to mess up with things that, it messes up with us. So in the constant flow and dynamic of life, outside of human interaction in human beings, there is that balance achieved daily, probably, because of like that Sufi analogy. But with us humans and in relationships and in our way of being who we are and just showing up in the world and all that, I don't think that balance is ever achieved in the way that nature does. Personally, I have not observed it or certainly experienced it. But we are striving for it always. So we're always going to the opposite. So back to the manipulation and the Taurus Scorpio piece, how they're actually the same but just different because they are different. And that's the thing. It's like they're doing the same thing. I should say they're striving for the same thing. They're just going about it in different ways, using different tools that are at their own different their disposal. And because they're different, in fact opposites, then their tools are different. But what they're trying to do is the same thing. So that's for all signs, right? And so here we have Taurus, Scorpio and Taurus, and manipulation piece. So what Taurus manipulates matter, physical matter, and by that I mean money, typically, right? Stereotypically, rather, house, clothes, physical, designing, cooking, right? It manipulates matter, where Scorpio manipulates emotions or energies. Is another way of putting it. And so that's why we don't notice Taurus manipulation as easily, because it's often not, they're not interested in manipulating us, except in sex, which I might talk about in a moment, because I haven't listed that amongst bad traits, but we'll see where this goes. Or maybe again, I can just mention it here. Might as well do that. It's maybe new practice. So the only time we will notice maybe Taurus manipulating us as a matter, meaning we are, and it's energetic, but it's still, Taurus is using us as a tool, physical tool, is in sex, because Taurus is all about self. Self, not in a kind of Aries way, well, energizing and just experiencing the self and just like going about and trying different things and just having this, being alive in that sense of just being up against the world, like a physical, energetic. It's just interested externally, like being the self, but in relation to the externals, where that's Aries. Where Taurus is being the self in relation to the internal. So it's all about self-reliance, self-resources, self-love, self-sufficiency, right? Including in sex. So that's why I like to call, actually, I don't know if I can say the word here, but basically self-pleasure is definitely, so you can now deduce what I meant, what I was going to say, but I wasn't going to. Actually, didn't say, I mean, I don't know why I'm feeling all of a sudden a bit prudish. Yeah, so self-pleasure is for Taurus, is Taurus, what Taurus is about. Sex is not self-pleasure, but Taurus will, you may, as a partner, sexual partner of Taurus, may feel used. And this is not, well, this is what I mean. So it's self-pleasure. It's all about how to give oneself pleasure, amongst how to be oneself, how to give everything to oneself without needing externals. So in a way, Taurus doesn't know how to have sex with another. It has it as a way of giving itself pleasure, right? So wherever you have Taurus, or if you have Venus or Mars, Taurus, you may relate to this. So in that sense, you may feel manipulated. And in that way, you're kind of a matter that is being manipulated, because you're a tool that is giving the orgasm or the pleasure to the Taurus archetype, right? So again, I'm talking of archetypes, but still, you know what I mean. It's houses, and wherever you have planets in Taurus, this may resonate. And then Scorpio is all about manipulating energy, because it's a water sign, and it's an emotion, right? Which is energy in motion. So that's why we feel Scorpio's manipulation far more easily, because it's, you know, it's energy. We feel the energies, and it's, you know, it's on, like it's easier to feel, basically. I imagine you understand what I mean. You agree with me. So you see what I mean? So and so why do we manipulate? Or why is Scorpio manipulative, and why is Taurus manipulative? Is to obviously get what they want, but what is that about? Power. Both sides are about power. And so the power, and this is where Scorpio explains power far more refinedly and sophisticatedly and clearly than Taurus does, but it's the same principle that both are seeking to achieve, just in different ways. So let's go back to Taurus, to Scorpio, which is, amongst other things, an archetypal power. And so power is achieved in Scorpio sense, and in most, when we think of power, this is how we think of it, is achieved by merging and absorbing an object that Scorpio considers powerful, which is what is at the root of occultism. Occultism, is that a pronunciation? It's like sigils, and I mean, I love it, I'm interested in it, but I don't practice these things, so I don't know the detail, the terminology fully. But I think sigil is one thing, like you create an object that is infused with powers that you want to possess, and then you perform some rituals and magic and whatever that actually you take that power into you, which is what sex is about, amongst other things, at least how Scorpio does it. And so essentially what I'm trying to say here, that to get power in the way that we, Scorpio and Taurus, are doing, particularly Scorpio, is we need to manipulate something outside of us in order to get it. Now, this is, evolutionarily speaking, this is what Scorpio needs to be doing in order to start to sense its own agency. It needs the external to do something with it, to feel that it has the power to create power. Where Taurus is the learning about having the power that's within you. And that what eventually a Scorpio needs to also learn, and it does eventually. Meaning that's why it's all self. It's like, I don't need you to feel powerful. I don't need you to give me power. I have power in me. And it's tantra in not sexual sense, but in the sense of, with another person, but in a sense of like creating orgasms and kundalini and the energy like that would burst your consciousness, open mind, blow your mind, and get you onto the next level of your ascension, let's say, can all be done on your own. And Taurus is an archetype of that. Not Taurus in itself, like I said, sun sign doesn't have to be anywhere near evolved in that way, but the potential is there, and that's the purpose of it. Okay, so hopefully I explained these kind of couple things there. Now let me just talk about something else, which is for Scorpio. The reason Scorpio is secretive, for instance, and where the kind of like, we don't feel like the intensity is also like that bad intensity I was talking about earlier, why it feels like get away from it, that stems from not trusting. Scorpio is, as an archetype, it's hard, finds it hard to trust anyone. In fact, I think it would be fair to say that it doesn't trust anyone. On surface, to an extent, yes, in sort of, interactions like daily or whatever, superficially speaking, but deep down, it doesn't. Now, this is not, this is what I mean. So if you think of this is what I mean by that it's not a bad thing, that it's actually evolutionarily necessary. So if you think of a Libra where we meet someone superficially and we can quickly ascertain and discern, like, okay, so they're not going to steal money from me, they're not going to, I don't know why that came to mind. But anyway, whatever, we can quickly see some of the things that people will, we can trust them with certain stuff, like, I can leave this with you, can you feed my cat while I'm away? We don't need to be too deeply involved to kind of trust the person with that and to trust our instinct about it, right? When we come to Scorpio, which comes after Libra, which is where we all of a sudden are like in the caverns of our, the depths of our being with someone, with ourselves first and foremost, that's Scorpio. It's the archetype of the underworld, of our own darkness. Underworld, right? Where it's all the stuff that it's not really palatable to the taste of the overworld, which would be Libra. So Scorpio is conscious, so he's very much aware. It's not like in Cancer where we are not aware of our underworld. We're still childlike. We're acting on our conscious moon, right? But we're not really fully aware of it. In fact, it's hard to, because at that stage we don't have the faculties for it, and it's okay. That's what I mean. It's okay to be bad. But when we get to Scorpio, we are very much aware. We know. It's like we are in the underworld of our own, and we can see everything. We can see all the hell, our inner hell, right? Our personal hell. We see it. We have no way of like shutting it away, shutting it off, like pretending it's not there. And that is the power of Scorpio. There's a point to this I'm making regarding the secretiveness and the intense gaze that can be uncomfortable and unwelcome, is the mistrust piece. So when you get to have anything to do with the Scorpio or in your Scorpio house, that's what happens. You're in your own internal hell, and it doesn't have to be hell. Let's call it underworld, because that makes it not bad necessarily. Just darkness and all kinds of stuff that not everyone taboo, right, and all that not everyone is okay with or can be okay with, and that's the piece. So Scorpio so the piece about mistrust knows, Scorpio knows that probably no one, in fact, I would go as far as to claim no one, not even probably, no one can handle our own hell, our own underworld, the way we need them to. And yet when you get to Scorpio stage of evolution, there is no way of getting close to Scorpio person, let's say, for the ease of verbalizing it all here, but archetype experience, Scorpionic experience, without facing your own and that person's underworld. But Scorpio knows that who can be trusted with my underworld? Very few. Let's say, I did say no one, but let's say there will be some. Who are they? The ones that can be trusted with their own underworld. So when Scorpio is secretive, or it has that intense gaze because it's trying to understand, can they trust you? Because they can see your underworld, and they can see whether you can see your own underworld and whether you are at home with it. That's what the gaze is for. And the secretiveness is to protect their own. So they can come across as not trustworthy because they don't trust you. So yeah, don't trust them, meaning they will not tell you everything. And, why should they? But that's the sense that one can get from Scorpio, like, what's all this? I don't know. What did they mean? I don't know what they mean. I don't know what they think. Did they tell me the truth? They probably didn't. The Scorpio wouldn't lie in theory, let's say. The archetype is not, it's about, although you can, wherever there is truth, there is lies. So maybe actually it's just that I'm basing some of this talk on my own experiences with Scorpios, and I had been lucky for the most of my adult life to have really integrity-full Scorpios in my life. So it's like a lie, it's just like drinking bad energy, even if you're, so that's what I mean. I don't think the more evolved Scorpio will not lie, but he will not tell you the truth either necessarily, because he knows you won't be able to handle it. But there's also something about that. So it's the underworld, the darkness, the hidden, right? But conscious of it. And there is also something about that darkness that when you have that manipulative power, manipulative in the sense that you can manipulate energy and you can manipulate matter as well, energy in Scorpio sense and in Taurus matter, you know that in darkness, some things need to stay in darkness it's a part of the process to stay in darkness. And so when you have next time faced with secretiveness and the kind of that sense of, can you trust them? I don't trust them. Are they telling me the truth? Are they telling me everything? Just remember this, that if they're not, they have a reason. They decided you can't handle it. They wouldn't like how you'd handle it. And therefore they will not share. But also they're deciding that it needs to stay private. And it's because for the process they need, that it's all alchemical for their own growth. It's necessary to stay like that. Now, the other piece that we have to remember, is that, this is for any sign, but for Scorpio in this case, obviously, all the things that the bad traits of that sign that they're brought to us by the sign, by the person, or by the house that we have in our charts, or wherever we encounter those energies, right, are there to show us and to teach us that that's in us too, but also to face us with our own judgments, with our own insecurities, with our own. And Scorpio actually, and I have witnessed this, and I actually love that about them. There is a revelry that can be misunderstood as pleasure, which is similar. It's the same thing in a way, but there is depth to it, to this pleasure of exposing you to something about themselves, not as a way of revealing themselves, but as a way of just being a certain way, exposing you to a certain a truth or certain way of being or thinking or whatever, that will shock you, make you feel uncomfortable, really make you kind of like go, oh, I don't like this kind of thing. And they revel in that. And that's what I mean. It can sound, so yeah, I suppose another thing that they may be accused of is sadism. Like that they're, mean, deliberately doing things. But the revelry is like they love seeing your soul squirm, and you will on your ego rather squirm, because they know the soul, the deeper you will be activated to be doing the work that you need to be doing, that you will benefit from. So and they love that tension, because it's where the work is, the work of self-integration, so it's like, and yes, you can feel like it's not, for them to trigger you into that, activate you to that. I get all that. But that's the point. We can't, that our desire to control who is going to trigger us is essentially our desire to just not be triggered. So it's like, how else are we going to do the work that we need to be doing? So yeah, if you don't want to do the work that you need to be doing in order to self-integrate, then maybe not ever go out and meet people, Scorpio or not, because there will be other signs. Every single sign will bring something to you that will make you do this. Ego will squirm, but really underneath something has started, and you will shift out of that old way of being and all of that, right? You get that. So do you see the how dual purpose? It's at that stage of our evolution through the chart, we are having to deal with this dirty, uncomfortable, dark, unpleasant, difficult, taboo stuff, and we can't deal with it without bringing it to the world as well. So for the world to evolve, but also for us at that stage of our evolution, Scorpio. And so back to Taurus, and to finish this, is that we have Taurus is the opposite, like I said, but ultimately trying to achieve the same, to have that power, to sense of fullness, and sense of achieving that self-realization, but without another. So this is the key difference, like a critical difference between Scorpio and Taurus. So even Scorpio will need the other, or thinks he needs the other, and sure, like I said, I'll explain why. But ultimately, this is where the romantic love of Scorpio, it doesn't exist. If you had any deep connection with Scorpio, you will know that kind of romantic or Leo or even Pisces-like or Libra-like love is not really what Scorpio is about. The relationship is about how can we help each other evolve? How can we help each other transcend our ego and transform and, do all that shadow work basically together? That's what the other is for Scorpio. Not for any, but it's for that there is deepest love and reverence and adoration. That's possibly maybe ego driven for the other person that they're doing that with. But it's ultimately for the work that they're doing together. It's not for the person. So you see what I mean? It's the same as Taurus. It doesn't really need, well, it needs the other, but it doesn't, for something very specific, not because it needs the other. Yeah? For something specific, for a specific piece of work. Where Taurus is living, is an example, or is like teaching us, the highest expression of Taurus, how to achieve that on your own. So, stubborn, boring, and the hedonist and all that. I spoke a little bit earlier, I think, about the pleasure and all that. But let me speak to the boring piece. When someone is so, when the highest expression of a sign, and let's say you are striving to do that in your Taurus house, is to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, self-oriented, so that you can do all that yourself, whatever, to find that power within you and fully realize that Taurus part of your chart. It's just like you're utterly uninterested in the world outside. Utterly. I mean, yeah, maybe the world don't matter, but certainly people, oh my God, no. No. So of course you're boring. You're just not entertaining. You don't care to entertain. You don't care to be entertaining, right? So, and when I stopped being a people pleaser, which is in one of my other videos, if you watched people pleasing, I talked about that, where I just stopped being entertaining because it was me trying to people please. And I was called over and over for like a good few months by a few people close to me, family, boring. And it was, oh my God, it was just wonderful. I was never called that because I was super entertaining. So I don't know what it feels like when I would dread to be called boring, but it was pleasure because at that point I was done with it. But yeah, that because I kind of didn't really, and I'm Taurus, right? So, I mean, even whatever I was, they would have probably called me boring. But yeah, I just kind of thought it was really fun. Fun example to use here. And as for the stubbornness, it's like, it knows what it wants, what it needs. It's like it knows what it needs. It knows itself because it's so self-obsessed or self-absorbed, So it's like it doesn't. So it's stubborn in the sense that it doesn't want to do something that it doesn't want to do, and also it's fixed sign, but Scorpio is fixed as well. But both are stubborn. I mean, but that's the thing. It's like it doesn't. It's like good. I'm good. I don't need this. And when they, when people who are astrologers, me even maybe, I can't remember what I did, but I'm sure, or I will, like when they say you need to change, you need to, you will only change when you actually need to, when you feel the need to. Not the kind of ego need, like, oh, I need this now, actually. Yeah, I'll do this now. No, when it comes to change, no, it's far deeper. But you will actually, You will be ready for it. That's what I mean by needing. So even Taurus, who is so stubborn and he will not budge, because it's not time to budge. And he knows that. And when I start doing vlogging as of next month on astrology, kind of like how I do, sharing my personal astrology journeys and based on my life and like how I work with those energies and archetypes, you will see, one of those will be there, on how you just, know that it's a no. It's a no, and it's been a no for like, let's say 10 years or 5 years or 5 months, meaning too long. Like for anyone else might be just like, oh, you're so stubborn, just give up or just do. But no, I just know I'm not ready because I'm so self-absorbed. Like Taurus, me maybe too, but Taurus certainly, right? So you see how it's evolutionarily necessary, because what Taurus wants is to achieve to seek that enlightenment essentially, which is what Scorpio also wants, through sex, through power, just power that will keep rising or raising the vibration of Scorpio, right? So the different tools, but both want that enlightenment. So Taurus will get it on its own, where Scorpio will get it through other things. Okay, that's it. So see you next week.